Welcome to the show today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning back in. Just a couple amazing conversations in Washington, D.C. for the March for Life. We always have to stop into a studio and sit with some of our favorite people and warriors for life in the pro-life space, especially with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, with the president who can't remember his own name, with states codifying abortion through point of birth, states making abortion illegal, and yet we're approaching 55, some people think 60% of annual abortion rate being the pill. That's happening in pro-life states that have banned abortion. The battle's like really heated up, and it's really important for you to hear the voices who have been shaping and leading the movement for a long, long time. And one of our probably favorite guests on Unaborted is Melissa Ohden, the founder and president of the Abortion Survivors Network, like the most unique organization, like not just in the pro-life movement, but like in the entire country. And it's so unique that people don't know what the phrase means. They think like, oh, I'm an abortion survivor because I had an abortion. It's like, that's not what that means. Actually, abortions are actually not performed on women. They're actually performed on babies. And if that offends you, I'm sorry. If you need healing, we love you. We're praying for you. Go through a healing curriculum. It was your baby who was murdered. So abortions are actually performed on babies. Sometimes a baby survives an abortion, and it's like one of the least talked about things in the culture. Nobody believes them. And in a culture that says, oh, me too, believe all women, believe survivors, nobody's talking about like the most traumatic thing you could survive. And so we have joining us again today on Unaborted Melissa Ohden of the Abortion Survivors Network for a compelling and powerful conversation. Stay tuned. I'm Seth Gruber, and this is Unaborted. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I think, you still took my podcast title.
I know. Well,
could have been mine.
You should have told me. Yeah. I think that's actually how we met, I think, was through the podcast. I don't remember how, actually. It's like 2019, I think. It was a long time ago.
And as we talk about folks who are leaders, I can't say enough times, you have been this consistent driving force in the pro-life movement who has said, give survivors a voice. We need to talk about this. Yeah. So that is you and your leadership for us.
Well, I've always said you're the bane of the pro-abortion movement, and because like there are some things that are so macabre and like demonic that there's certain instances and contexts when it just becomes so blatantly obvious. Like most Christians in America are functional atheists, and what I mean by that is like they're doing all the Christian rhythms. Maybe they're even part of a small group and they're reading through a book of the Bible, but like functionally it's like they live like an atheist. It's like they're not contending against demonic forces. Like abortion is demonic. Like I've always said, it's the sacrament of Satan, because abortion says you must die so I can live, but Christ says no, I must die so you can live. Like but sometimes there are instances when that like darkness just becomes so in your face. And like some of the times is like when you or members of your team share your story publicly. It's like the gnarliest thing. On Capitol Hill sometimes in front of, we've talked about like Busy Phillips before. You guys, if you listen to this podcast, you probably didn't know who that is. She's some crazy like slut of a feminist who just sleeps her way around Hollywood and like says abortion is empowering, whatever. But like these people on the Hill, and they won't even look at you. It's like the gnarliest thing. Like, can you talk about that for like listeners who haven't heard your story before because it's been a year? Like, first of all, you survived a saline salt-infused abortion. You were being burned in the uterus with saline salt solution.
Right.
You're an abortion survivor. But like to be like, if abortion is about women's rights, where were mine? And like they won't even look at you. Like take us into that room in those instances. Like what's that like? What's that darkness like?
Well, and to raise your point that you've already articulated so well, abortion survivors are simply someone who survived an attempt to abort them.
Yeah.
Right? It's not everybody who was born after Roe versus Wade. It's not the women who had an abortion. And we don't mean that in a demeaning way. Words have power, and we know that. The other side is so masterful at language. That's how they've gotten us to this place in our culture.
Yeah, that's right.
So in many ways, we have to kind of over-communicate who an abortion survivor is and claim that back as something that we shouldn't have to be ashamed of.
Right.
We have lots of folks here in DC this week who are wearing our shirts that say miracles happen. Yeah. And should we be ashamed of the fact that we're miracles? No, we shouldn't have to be. But the abortion industry and the media that is fueling all of this makes us feel like we should somehow be ashamed and be quiet and never show up on the Hill.
Right, right.
And so that's been what I've gone through in the last, I don't know, how long have I been doing this now? 16 years, 17 years? I don't know anymore. But I gave up a safe, comfortable life where nobody ever would have known my story. But I can tell you that I had a moment at a funeral of a family member when they talked about her and her faith and how much she loved Jesus. And I had this moment, Seth, where I went, what do I want people to ever know about me when I leave this world?
Right.
And I don't want them to just know that I love Jesus. They would have already known that. But I can't imagine people not knowing what God has done in my life.
Right.
And so there is that darkness, right? That we would live in a culture and we would be run by politicians who want to say, you are not a miracle. You don't even exist. You must be a liar. You're fictional, right? You are a Republican-made machine to somehow take down women's reproductive rights. I mean, for real?
Right.
Do I look that scary? And
A little bit.
when they've tried to say over the years, like essentially like pat you on the head,
I'm a little afraid of you.
Aren't you cute?
Yeah.
You aren't even relevant to this conversation.
Right.
Or there's only one of you. Well, isn't that such a demeaning thing to someone who has been victimized by anything to go, you know what? This doesn't happen to anyone. It didn't happen to you. You're a liar. And P.S. there must be just like one of you.
Yeah, right.
So it's...
Well, and you said before, like, you were a feminist.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it's like, oh, okay. You're just using this as a story because you're a tool of the GOP to take down the Democrats' sacrament of abortion. You're probably getting paid really well. Either you're making this up, or if it is true, like it's like you're like 1 or 2 out of like 20 million or whatever. It's like, okay, for like, just take us to your personal experience of being like, well, wait a second. I supported a woman's right to get an abortion, and then learning that, how did you say it? The act that nearly took my life. Say that powerful
Yeah,
line.
well, that's, you know, over the years, we were actually talking about this tonight on the way here. Like, what committees have you testified at? I mean, enough that I don't keep track, right, anymore. And one of the lines that I've had to share with them time and time again, and I shouldn't have to keep saying this, but clearly we need to keep shouting it from the rooftops, is, you know, isn't there something wrong when that very act that was meant to take my life is now the right that I'm supposed to be exercising, right? I mean, isn't it wrong when someone's supposed right is based on someone's life ending? There is no other circumstance in our world where people would go, cool, you have a right to do that.
Right.
When Senator Feinstein passed away, and I haven't talked a lot about this, I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, but I had a moment with her after a hearing, and I can't even tell you what year it was, but I remember where I was sitting, and I was talking that day about how, you know, I wanted them to reconcile on that committee how I supposedly had this right to an abortion when I never had the simple right to be born.
Yeah.
And so I kept talking about that in various different ways in that hearing. And after the hearing, she actually approached me. I was still sitting at a table, sort of like this.
Right.
And she approached me and she said, I want to let you know I heard you. And I sat there, right, and thought, is this really happening right now? I can't believe this is happening. And all I could do was look up at her and I said, thank you. And
I'm still going to kill babies, Melissa, but I heard you.
Right. But at the end of the day, right, isn't that part of what we're called to do is keep going and speaking the truth? We shouldn't have to keep going.
Yeah.
But in some respects, this is the world that we're now living in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where we still have to show up and we still have to keep speaking.
We'd like to thank our sponsor of the show, Every Life Diaper Company, Every Life Diaper. I'm going to keep saying this because we need to defund a culture of death. We need to fund a culture of life, and we need your help to do this. If you're having kids, if you have grandkids, okay? If you want to gift diapers to a friend or a family member who's having kids, if you're at a pregnancy center and you buy diapers to provide to moms that you're loving on, don't buy them from one of the 8 pro-abortion diaper companies. It's ridiculous. The baby industry, for goodness sakes, that profits more when more babies are allowed to be born. The baby industry, by and large, rhetorically supports or financially supports the abortion industry. They're helping fund the slaughter of their clientele base. How do you make sense of that? The woke mind virus, humanism, Darwinism, progressivism, it does weird things to the brain. We, as pro-life individuals and Christians, need to fight back with our wallets. Go to everylife.com. Everylife.com. Use promo code Seth10, Seth10, Seth10 to get 10% off your first order. Buy diapers from a pro-life diaper company, because guess who is the majority of the customers of the baby industry? It's pro-life conservative Christians who are having babies way more than crazy leftists. So what if we all put our money to pro-life baby industry to defund the culture of death that's funding and profiting off of the slaughter of children? Everylife.com, promo code Seth10, Seth10. Let them know that we sent you and get 10% off your first order. Yeah, you said, I remember you said it. So how could the act that nearly took my life simultaneously be my fundamental right to exercise?
You said that was 100% what I said. Yes.
Yeah, isn't that wild to think about? That's so crazy. We don't even know how to think anymore in our country, in our republic. Mm-hmm. You don't have a right to life, but you do have a right to an abortion. I can't imagine what that does to someone who's pro-choice and then learns that they survived an abortion. Mm-hmm. Like, what does that do to your world, your worldview?
And that's what people don't understand about survivors as well. And I think you have figured this out about us because you've spent enough time around us to know that every survivor's experience is so unique and diverse. And yes, there are abortion survivors, babies who survived abortions, who had abortions themselves. And
wow.
I can tell you that is a painful,
wild
experience for most survivors. And it's born out of a place of the trauma that happened to them. And usually it's not talked about in the family. That survivor doesn't often know their story, or because of the lack of healing in that family, there's abuse and neglect that then sets the stage for more trauma. And that's where I challenge anybody who sees themselves as pro-choice, or the politicians who want to paint us into a corner and say, everybody but you. Look at the lives of survivors and who we really are, and our mothers who experienced this, and our families who have been impacted by it, and do something about it. Help us. Because when they refuse our very existence, what they're doing is not only shaming survivors, but they're shaming the women who experienced the abortion that failed, or that they stopped, or they reversed.
Yeah.
So in this, like, hear every woman, well, they're shutting down.
Yeah.
And they're preventing those families from having healing.
Yep. Right. You know what's wild is, what's one of the most popular, like, movie narratives in Hollywood? Like, one of the most, like, a very popular script for tons of movies that have been done over the decades. This is back when they like made good films. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah, before it was just like The Rock, like, flexing his, pectorals, or just porn in every film. Or, anyways, the good Hollywood era. How many movies and shows have been done about, like, an orphan or an adoptee,
right,
who wants to be in touch with their biology, that wants to know where they came from? How many stories and books and biographies and best-selling books and movies have been made about, I was given away. Mm-hmm. My mom didn't want me. She didn't kill me, but she didn't want me. I was unwanted. If I was wanted enough, they would have sacrificed and figured out how to raise me. And when adoptees find out that they're adopted, it's like, it can be a primal wound.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this, like, acknowledgement that, like, being unwanted is painful enough that it changes your entire person and view of the world. And so the movie's made about a journey to try to go find my dad or my mom. And that's acknowledged, and those stories are listened to. But if they so didn't want you that they were willing to pay a hitman to kill you and call it healthcare, well, we want to hear your story.
Right. And
it's like, whoa, but that's way more Primal Wound.
And the story would have been better.
I was so unwanted that like they tried to kill me in utero rather than just give birth and have a primal wound by being adopted out. Like, by the way, adoption's beautiful. I'm a Christian. It's wonderful. It's the story of the gospel. We're all adopted. Like, but like there's studies on this. Like, it's a primal wound. Right. When you realize, oh, that's not my mom and dad for real. That's gnarly to find out. Now find out they tried to murder me. Oh, but you can shut up.
Well,
shut
and
up.
they would
what happened to you was illegal.
They would rewrite the script to go, yeah. That story would be better off written with a different ending.
Yeah.
Right. The ending of death. And that honestly.
And isn't that the fundamental belief? Isn't that really what the pro-choice movement believes about abortion survivors? It would have been better if you were dead.
And somehow we would have been better off with that.
I mean, how do you and your team not just become like angry, just like monsters? I would be so pissed off at the culture. I don't think I'd be very healthy. I'm not very healthy. Out of all the things,
right? Well, I sign me up, right? I'm there. I mean, there's a reason why I do this work. That's the part.
But Jesus, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the part though that keeps me super passionate and involved in this is knowing I refuse to let this culture dictate to abortion survivors and their moms and their families what their worth is. I refuse to let them keep all of this a secret.
Yeah.
But at the same time, do I have moments where I go, man, this is so messed up. I can't even believe I have to have this conversation. I can't believe out of any organization in the pro-life movement that serves women, our organization is the one that serves women who are experiencing their abortions failing right now, both chemical abortion pills. Those women are looking for answers. They're looking for help. They're looking for hope. They're trying to figure out if they're going to abort the baby again.
Dang. So
Yet,
gnarly.
Who are they coming to?
Do you have a phrase for that, for someone who survives 2 attempts?
They're still an abortion survivor.
Yeah. It's like double.
We have doubles, triples.
Oh my gosh.
We knew in our community of survivors that we had a number of survivors who survived, say, 2 rounds of a chemical abortion and then a follow-up D&C. Now,
wow.
From that standpoint, when doctors look at that and former abortionists, they say that was probably a twin.
Oh, gnarly.
But again, why is it that we have to be the ones who are figuring all of this out? Yeah. Because if it was a different storyline, our culture would say, hey,
little secret.
Right. The culture would be like, hey, let us help you. Let us support you. There would be all of these organizations and all of these services to help serve people. But instead, it's like,
Melissa, tell the story that you told like 2 years ago. Man, I'm getting old.
Better you than me.
You see all these grays? My wife's been
welcome.
How many I have here? Of that little girl that your ministry worked with and ministered to, and what she said when she kind of like that is just like, tell that story for people to understand. I think it's a powerful story for the people listening who maybe never even heard an abortion survivor speak before or never even met one, of like what this experience and community really faces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is this hidden pain. I mean, think for a second what it's like for anybody who has gone through something traumatic to live in a culture that maybe doesn't understand it or doesn't support it. But then think about taking that up like on steroids, lighting it on fire. I mean, and that's really been even, I thought I saw so much of it during Roe, which we did. And then we hit pause when Roe was overturned. And then what we've seen is just it being stoked even further, the flames. When Governor DeSantis brought up the name of a survivor, Penny, during the first presidential debate in August, I don't know if everybody followed that thread, but what the mainstream media did to Penny
that's right.
is disgusting.
That's right. Tell us about that.
Well, it started with them really just questioning, who is she, right? And, oh, she is this pro-lifer who, she's trying to restrict women's rights, and there's no way that she's a survivor, and there's no way this happened, and no way that happened. And as you started to see it morph, and it lasted a long time, that news cycle, it lasted way longer than what it typically does. What you saw then was the shift from them saying, no, that couldn't have happened to her, she's lying, to, oh gosh, she survived a coat hanger attempt to abort her, like Pastor Jack Hibbs.
Gnarly.
And that is why safe, legal abortion is needed.
Jeez Louise. Right. So the problem was, how your parents tried to kill you. It just should have been a bummer that you were almost ripped apart with a coat hanger. We're really concerned with your mom, though. I wish she had done it a safer way for her, because you're trash. You're not a person. That's so gnarly.
And that message right there, I can tell you, is the one that so many survivors have internalized. So the folks who survived before Roe, and that's the reality, right? For the folks who are listening who want to go, oh gosh, you know what? There's always been abortion and there always will be. Does that make it okay?
Yeah, right, yeah.
As Christians, especially.
Yeah.
So we can't be accepting that argument. But for those who survived before Roe, I can tell you there is this heavy, heavy burden, because the message that they've received from our culture, whether it was, purposeful or not, and I would say it's been very purposeful by the abortion industry and the media, which is to say, you know what, it's your fault.
Wow. Because
your mother needed to abort you illegally in an unsafe, unsanitary way, whatever it is.
Blaming the victim.
You are the reason why Roe had to be here in the first place.
That's what degenerate, flaming piles of poopy parents say. That's like what abusive, crappy parents say. Why'd you make me hit you? That's like the abusive drunk dad. Like, why did you make me hit you? This is your fault. It's so gnarly.
And then when you
tell that little girl story.
Yeah, and that's one of the stories. So for folks who aren't aware, we serve survivors of any age. So yes, there are survivors in their 80s and 90s. People are connected to us and supported in many different ways. But we also serve a lot of young survivors. We also have support groups for moms who are maybe raising their surviving child and adoptive parents. But
your parents did.
Yeah. So we serve some young survivors, so say under 12. My newest book, Abortion Survivors Break Their Silence, came out in early January with focus on the family. And one of those survivors is about 12 years old now. But one of the other 12-year-olds is who you're referencing. And so she's an adoptee, and we worked with her family to help her know that she's a survivor. First of all, talk about abortion in an age-appropriate way.
Was she 12 at the time you started working?
She was 10.
Yeah, see, gnarly. Man.
And it's tough, right? It's different from family to family. And if you're a parent listening and you're thinking, this is our story and I really don't feel up to this at the age of 10, cool. Not everybody needs to do it at 10. But you need to be supported. You need to have tools. So what we did is work with that family so they could have this conversation. And it takes a while, right? You don't wake up and go, okay, we're going to talk about these 3 things by the end of the week.
Jeez.
So what ended up happening is after she found out her story, right, it is painful. It doesn't matter if you're 10 or you're 50. It hurts.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that she asked me the first time I met with her, and it wasn't the first time she had said it, but it will always stay with me. One of the questions she had, she said, what if my biological mom comes looking for me to finish what she started? And that's what I want our world to understand. Put yourself in her shoes. And no, the answer is not, don't tell her story. Wrong answer. That is the wrong answer. Yeah. Back it up and address the real issue. So that is the heart of every survivor, right? Of and that's, when you're talking about the sickness of what we do, that's who I am, right? I am fight or flight. I am on 24/7. And why? Not just because I know the magnitude of the problem, but because my switch got turned on in the womb, right? I was like, you're either going to fight or you're going to die, right?
Yeah. Wow, that's a gnarly thing to say.
But the other thing that she said to me that I want people to understand too. She said, Melissa, someday I want to be a mommy, right? I want to get married and I want to be a mommy. Such an age appropriate thing for her to be thinking about. And she said, but who would ever love me if they find out what my birth mom did to me?
Oh my gosh.
And again, that is the heart of who we are, which is, right, I can't ever let anybody know who I am because I must be unlovable.
Right. Man.
And even though we can live in a family that can love us and support us the best that we can, whether it's our biological or our adoptive family, we still live in a culture that is like, hey, you over there, you are so unlovable that we're going to say you don't exist.
Right.
So survivors are constantly living with that push-pull of the biological basis of it all.
Yep. And the powerful thing about, I think, like abortion survivors speaking, is it makes the pro-life position self-evident. I think I've said this in different ways before, but is that there's a completely objective acknowledgement, even from the Democrats, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Busy Phillips. Like they won't articulate it, right? You know this.
They'll say it on social media after.
They won't articulate this thought, but I know that even because the attorney's written on the heart of man, and there's common grace, and like we've been made by God, we have a conscience as much as we've seared it in the American culture, and so like deep down, Melissa, even Nancy Pelosi knows. If she wasn't a complete piece of crap hack of a tool of Satan, like she knows deep down that would be a painful experience. Mm-hmm. Like everyone knows that to be like, this hurts because I feel like I was unwanted from the moment I came into existence, and I was being attacked from the moment I came into existence. And the reason why that screams a obvious, common sense, self-evident pro-life perspective is because if that wasn't you in the womb, then why would you be so impacted now by what happened to you then?
Right.
It's like, come on.
I mean,
does
the trauma come after you're born? I mean, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why you're not allowed to speak. Right. That's why Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo, before those hacks were fired at CNN, would never have an abortion survivor on the show, just to be like, wow, so what's that like?
Right.
They have no interest in that conversation because it's too damaging to the entire worldview, to the entire facade of choice.
Right. Well, and it allows them to continue to pit women against children. And that's the other part that my eyes have been so open to since the fall of Roe. I mean, we went through this process of having like a 40% increase in the number of survivors who reached out to us. And I was expecting that.
40%. So wait, we haven't talked about enough about what Abortion Survivors Network does. Tell the listeners about like what you do.
We do a little bit of everything. I mean, we raise awareness. September is our awareness month because the International Day of Safe Abortion is included in that month. And, we are a living testament of the fact that there is no such thing as a safe abortion. So minor detail.
Wow, that's so good. That's such a good line.
That made it an easy month for us to do that awareness. But it's so important for us to be able to share stories in a culture that wants to keep silencing us. And so sometimes, does it feel like we're just kind of like this little pebble? But you know what? Together, right, we keep picking up larger and larger stones. Yeah. So people who are listening who haven't tuned in and even looked at this year's videos, go to YouTube, follow the Abortion Survivors Network, be willing to listen to them. It was so interesting to me because this was the first time we told really deep stories in many different ways. And we had folks who were pro-abortion on social media totally mocking it and going, they're not true. And people would say, did you watch the video? No, I don't have to. I know they're not real. Okay.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of awareness. This year we launched advocates and also ambassadors who are abortion survivors in people's states and sometimes in different nations because we do serve internationally. So folks can go to our website, see who their advocates or ambassadors are in their state, and keep watching for more.
Now, what I've said before, Melissa, is I've just said like one of the most powerful things you do is like you're just there.
We just breathe.
So like there's somewhere for people to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to connect, find community, heal, then find their voice and be empowered.
That's right.
Because imagine like, 1,000 abortion survivors on the steps of the Supreme Court in 5 years saying, we are here, we're real. It's no one knows what to do with you.
And that's what it's ultimately going to take.
Right.
And when other folks are questioning it and saying, Melissa, if there are these thousands of abortion survivors every year in the United States alone, where are they? Well, they might be a baby in utero right now who survived the first attempt to abort them and may be aborted again, sadly.
Right.
We don't even know how many those are, but I can tell you that we serve their moms right now. They may be 5 years old, 10 years old, not know their story. They could be 30 and feel like they're the only one, right? Because of our culture that sends the message and silence and shames, most survivors think they're the only one. And you're like, I can't tell anybody this. So you're right. We do awareness. We do healing. We offer community. We provide opportunities to find and use your voice. Not everybody is going to go testify before Congress, but we want to give people the opportunity that they feel like they can.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's good.
And ultimately reach those people so that, yes, the number keeps growing. We've reached over 700 and some right now. I can't even tell you the number because part of the difficulty for us tracking right now is we serve so many women who are pregnant after the abortion pill failed that we can't even count that survivor in utero right now until they're born.
Wow. Right. Dang. Yeah. And you've been doing a lot of new work on just the abortion pill and babies surviving medication abortion attempts.
Right. And that's what people also wouldn't hear in our culture, right? That meta-analysis would tell us that like 1.1 to and upwards of, almost 5-6%. I mean, that's in meta-analysis, that's the incidence of the abortion pill failing.
Really?
And I mean, I've read reports of even higher, like you're looking at double digits. And we know that the later in a pregnancy that the abortion pill is taken, the greater the likelihood is that it's going to fail. And when people hear those words, what I want them to think of is, oh gosh, the abortion pill failing is a baby.
Yeah.
A baby who has a future. And that's what so many women reach out to us. I mean, we're looking at...
Well, think of all the babies whose mothers changed their mind 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12 hours after taking Mifeprex. Those are abortion survivors.
Right. Babies who survive successful abortion pill reversal.
Yeah. Which is a lot more now in the last few years as APR has, become more popular.
Absolutely. So those babies are survivors. And then we have, babies who survive both abortion pills. And yes, do women have concerns about the future for their baby? Yes, but what does that, again, tell us about what they know?
Yeah, that it was a baby,
And that's the question that we get is, tell me what I've done.
Yeah.
And they want answers. And there's not a lot of good research out there. We're trying to comb through that research and report it back and answer questions. But most of the answers that we get are from our community members. So we can say, right, in this sample of 5 babies who survived the abortion pill at this gestation, here's what their life looked like.
Yeah.
We've never talked about it in the pro-life movement. We've never looked at those outcomes. So that's something that I'm glad that we can report. Yeah.
If you run into me at the steps of the Supreme Court, you got to come up because we're overdue for this. My last year, I had like a camera guy on me with a big fat.
Oh no,
camera,
I remember.
And so they wouldn't talk to me.
I think you were texting me.
Don't
like,
give them
randomly.
content. Don't give them content. It's like coward. So at this time, we're gonna have like just a social media person with a phone a ways away that doesn't even look like they're with me, so that maybe they'll have the testicles or most of these people you never know if they've chopped them off, but the courage to actually talk to me. But if you got to come up sometime, we got to figure this out so that I can just be like the
we have had a lot of ideas over the years.
I can be the jerk, and be like, did she have a right to life? She survived an abortion. Tell her she doesn't matter. You freaking little coward. You puny little piece of crap. Tell her Look her in the eye, you stupid piece of crap. Tell her she doesn't have a right to life. And then I can be that person. You can just sit there.
You would like it just a little bit.
Yeah, I would like that. You talked one time about this like interesting phrase or term that was used in this report years ago to refer to abortion survivors, and it like totally gives away the game. It totally reveals like how these people view babies, really like human beings, like getting in the way of your way of life. They called you dreaded complications.
That's right.
Can you talk about that?
And that came from the abortion industry themselves. So that was Dr. Willard Cates, who was then the head of abortion surveillance for the CDC.
Oh, wow.
Or actually, no, sorry. That one was actually an abortionist who called us the dreaded complication, but then it was included in the dreaded complication series that Cates was quoted in. But you hear it time and time again from the abortion industry and abortionists themselves that we are this dreaded complication. So something that should be avoided and something that should be prevented. And again, as a culture, if they didn't know we were talking about abortion and you knew that they were talking about another human being and you were like, listen, their life, their livelihood should be avoided at all costs, right? That's something you need to prevent. What would we call that?
Yeah.
We know what we would call that. But somehow when it's abortion, they're like, well, listen, it's her choice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. One of my favorite lines on the abortion topic, period, was from this guy named Hadley Arcus. I think he might still be alive. The guy's like crazy smart. And he said, if abortion is a legal right, it's a positive right, a legal right, then the abortion advocate cannot really complain if the state does not permit an abortion, for the same government that can grant rights can take them away. However, if abortion is a natural right, a right that springs from our human nature, then the abortion advocate had that right from the moment she came into existence, the moment of conception. Therefore, we are left with an amusing paradox. According to the logic of abortion advocates, unborn women do not have a right to life, but they do have a right to an abortion.
That would be essentially what I was testifying about, right?
Yes, that's right. That's why I thought of it. Yeah. Where was my right to life? When did it begin? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And for people to apply the same principle to their own life, right? It's so easy for them to somehow look at one of us as an abortion survivor and be like, well, put yourself in our shoes. I mean, that is bigotry to somehow think that you have a different standard than the rest of us do.
Yeah. Well, all pro-choicers are bigots because bigots discriminate against others based off of immutable characteristics they have no control over, and the baby can't control the fact that they're smaller, less developed, and more dependent. So every pro-choicer is a bigot. And I'm sure my trolls will like clipping that one. But we're running
They've
short
heard
on,
it before.
We're running short on time, but like for people who haven't listened to your story before, just like share a little bit of it, because it's too beautiful and long of a story to condense into 1 minute. But you overheard a conversation, or you got into a fight with your sister.
Oh, yeah, how I found out my story.
Like, because that's just like, take people to that.
Yeah, so I grew up knowing I was adopted. I knew that I had a lot of health issues when I was first born, if we want to use the word born. I mean, I was born. It was accidentally born, but okay. Accidentally on purpose.
What do you say? I learned that I didn't have a birthday.
Right.
I had a day.
That I was accidentally born alive. And what's the difference between you and me?
That's so crazy. Think about that, guys, for a second. Like, when abortion survivors celebrate their birthday, like how could a birthday be traumatic? Like, birthdays are supposed to be like this amazing celebration. And it's like, wow, no, that's the day that I have to like relive the fact that like I barely escaped. Think about that for a second. That's so gnarly.
Yeah. And that's, again, right, for people to finally put themselves in our shoes.
Happy birthday. Oh.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Jeez.
But I didn't obviously know that I had survived an abortion until I was 14. I got in an argument with my older sister, and, she shouted out to me, at least my biological parents wanted me. And I was thinking, whoa, we're both adoptees. Like, thought we were on pretty equal footing. And
she was like, go talk to mom.
Right. It got really ominous really quickly. And she, started to figure out that she knew something that I didn't. And, I never could have known that our parents had told her my story. And, put yourselves in 14-year-old Melissa's shoes, sitting down on a cold October night, asking your mom to explain why your adopted sister would say something like that. And put yourself in my mom's shoes, right, who had lived with that pain for 14 years. They knew that I had survived that abortion. Like so many parents, they didn't know if, when, why, how, what they would tell me. And so, that night changed our family's course of history. I mean, by the grace of God, right? God's in those details to bring about good in the midst of it all. But it was the most devastating thing to go through. And back then, right, there was no internet. There was nobody talking about failed abortions, stopped abortions, reversed abortions. There was nowhere to go for survivors or families to turn to.
Right.
And so, it was this really lonely existence. And so for me, that is one of the most redemptive things God has done in my life, is not only connect me with my birth mom, who is now such a huge part of my life, which P.S. she just met my mom and dad for the first time at Christmas. It was amazing. I'll show you photos later.
Wow.
But it's also such a work of redemption and restoration for me to serve other survivors and have them in my life and serve women just like my biological mother and like my adoptive parents, and let the outcomes be different.
Yeah. Wish we could get you on the Joe Rogan show. Wouldn't that be nuclear for
amazing.
Abortion Survivors Network? He's got more reach than CNN and MSNBC and ABC combined.
I don't know why.
Isn't that crazy? More people listen to Joe Rogan, some weed, pot smoking, like lib who hates the liberal establishment. And like, man, everyone needs to hear the stories of abortion survivors. You're the hidden secret. You're the dreaded complication. You're the dirty little secret of the abortion industry. Where can people support Abortion Survivors Network and learn more?
Yeah, go to abortionsurvivors.org. You can learn more. You can go to our YouTube channel, follow us at that handle on social media. We definitely need more folks to help us in spreading the word.
Yep. Write checks, give money, guys.
Well, and to drop the truth in the comment box. Like,
yep.
Let's go.
Yep. Yeah, we need to get you on university campuses. We still got to do that sometime. We got to figure out some speaking tour at like UC Berkeley or something like that. Be so baller.
You want that.
Yeah.
You want that.
That's right. I'll just get all riled up and then, yeah. Well, we're so grateful for your ministry, Melissa. Hope you guys support them. I'm a donor, and you should support them. There's no other ministry like Abortion Survivors Network. I mean, it's just such unique work, and no one else can do it. Only an abortion survivor can really do that work. I can be supportive, but like, it's, you made it out. You made it. You escaped the pills, the vacuum catheter tubes, the forceps. So that's why you guys are such fighters.
Thank you.
Anything new you have coming out? Anything?
Yeah, the new book
support?
came out with Focus
Yeah, where can
on the,
people get your book?
Yeah, Focus on the Family Tyndale. So abortion survivors break their silence. I tell the story of about 10 other abortion survivors, including through the voices of women who have stopped their abortion or reversed it.
Is it on Amazon?
It is on Amazon.
All right.
And, I challenge people who maybe don't support the pro-life position or abortion survivors to read it and learn more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't deny our existence if you aren't willing to read the book.
Yeah, amen. Well, I encourage you guys to go become a monthly donor at Abortion Survivors Network. Get Melissa's book. Pick up a few, send it to Pro-Choice Uncle Bob. Create a little dicey Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter this year. Thanks you guys for tuning in. Go to iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Give us a rating and review. We really appreciate it. Helps me reach more people. If you want to join the White Rose Resistance, go to thewhiterose.life. $35 a month, you become an ally, and you get our training courses. And $70 a month, you get our book club. But if you're listening today, I really want you to go to Abortion Survivors Network. Is it ASN?
Abortionsurvivors.org.
Abortionsurvivors.org. abortionsurvivors.org.org. Check out their ministry. Get on their newsletter. Become a donor. 2024, guys, buckle up. This is going to be an intense election year, and we need to get behind the voices of people who are the bane of the abortion movement and the Democrat Party. Till next week, I'm Seth Gruber, and this is Unaborted.